Over 50% of all co-founder relationships don't work. It's true. In fact, with the startup CEOs I've worked with, I'd say the number is over 60%. That's how tough it is to find a good co-founder. So what do you do if you find yourself in one of these situations where a co-founder isn't working out or a key employee isn't working out? Well, that's what today's video is all about. And I'm going to go deep in this one. I'm going to give you 9 things to work on in this video about how do you fix your co-founder issues and what do you do if you have a key employee that isn't working out. Hi, I'm Brett Fox, and I've been building teams now for over 20 years. I've seen good teams, I've seen bad teams, and I know what works and I know what doesn't work. And that's what we're going to go over in today's video. So let's get started. As I said, over 60% of the CEOs that I've worked with have had issues with co-founders, which has led to them having to let a co-founder go. And I'm going to go through 9 issues in this video. Let's start with the first issue that you have to deal with. And that is identifying that there's actually a problem with a co-founder. And this is the one that I find is the hardest to deal with, because your heart is telling you one thing and your head is telling you another thing. And this is the challenge: is you've worked with this person, you want to believe in this person, you're afraid that maybe this person isn't going to work out. So what do? You delay, you wait, and you ignore the problem for what it is. I have seen this so many times, I've lost count of how many times I've seen this. So what should you do? You have to be intellectually honest, because the problem isn't going to get better. Now, hopefully, with any of your co-founders, in fact, any of your key employees, any of your direct reports, you're having regular one-on-one meetings with that person. These are a great ability for you to give a key employee feedback on what's working and what isn't working. And I would be very direct, not mean, but direct, because you want to tell somebody, and you want to be a teacher, and you want to be a coach. And you want to coach somebody on how they can get better and how they can improve. And if they're screwing up, better to address the issue now than wait. So that's the first trick, is you have to identify there's actually a problem. That's the first thing you have to do. So what's the second thing that you have to do? If you've identified there's a problem and you know there's an issue and you recognize that the problem isn't getting better and it's not going to go away and you can't fix it, well, what do you need to do? That's right, you got to take action. You actually have to do something about this problem that you have with the co-founder, with the key employee. These first 2 steps. This is what usually takes people too long, is they wait and they hope that the problem is just going to go away, as I said earlier, and it doesn't go away. So you have to actually take action. So what does this mean? Yep, it means that you're likely going to have to fire somebody. Firing is never fun, and it's especially difficult with a co-founder, because many co-founder relationships are personal relationships that you've had with this co-founder for years, that preceded the company. They can be friendships, and all these things go away, or potentially go away, when you have to fire a co-founder. This is what makes it so hard and so painful to do it. I think it's one of the most painful things about being a startup CEO, is all the relationships that you potentially could lose. That's what makes it so difficult, but you've got to take action. So you have to, once you get to this point, you have to say, you know what, I'm going to take action. Okay, once you decide that you're going to take action, you have to decide then, okay, what does a settlement look like with this key employee or co-founder? Let's talk about co-founders, because they're much more challenging sometimes to deal with than key employees regarding settlements. Key employees, typically, it's going to be typically, depending upon where you are in jurisdiction, just a simple termination. But with a co-founder, there can be a co-founder agreement that you have to deal with. There can be the stock that they own. It could be that maybe you haven't set up proper vesting. I've seen this many times where, for whatever reason, the CEO and the team didn't have proper vesting, which means that the stock wasn't vesting over time. So therefore now you have to deal with buying back the stock, or buying out the founder. So how do you do this? Let's say that you have a co-founder who owns 30% of the company, just to make up a number. And now let's say that you don't have any agreement in there where typically let's say it's in the first year of this agreement, you recognize, you know what? He or she is not working out. I've got to get rid of this person. Yet they own 30% of the company because you don't have a vesting agreement like you would with an employee. So what do? Well, typically, any founder's stock should vest over 4 years with a 1-year cliff, which means in that first year, they shouldn't get anything. Years 2 through 4, they would vest the remaining 3/4 of their stock. So what should you do if you don't have an agreement? Let an agreement guide you. In other words, if it's within the first year, they're really not owed anything. And you can use that kind of as a negotiating point to start from. Now, maybe you'll have to prorate something between, let's say, if at 1 year they're owed 7% or 7.5% if it's 30%, well, then you could use that as a guide. Now I'm going to give you 2 other tips as guides as well. You can't do anything which is going to destroy the further growth of the business and the growth of the company. So in other words, if you agree to a cash settlement, you can't drain the company bank account of all the cash just for the sake of this one employee. You also can't give an employee so much equity that you can't raise more money because essentially you have all this quote-unquote debt equity on the books. Now, there are ways around this as well, but I don't want to go there. It's just too long and too complicated. Let's just say for simplicity's sake, you have to come up with an agreement. Well, you can use these as guideposts. I will also tell you, every single time I've had to deal with this, either as a CEO or advising other CEOs, an agreement has come to between the co-founder and the CEO and the company. Always there's a way to work this out. So that's what a settlement will look like. Now, what else might you want to do before you drop that settlement? This comes to my next point. You might want to talk to an employment attorney, depending upon the reason the person is leaving, depending upon what's in the employment agreement. You may need to speak to an employment attorney. An employment attorney can help you navigate this. You also might want to, if you have a general counsel in your company, you also might want to use their services as well. I did this with one of my co-founders to help take away the emotion out of the argument rather than it being me negotiating with the co-founder. I let our attorney negotiate with the co-founder who I had to let go. And that helped eliminate a really tense situation and allowed us to settle instantly with the co-founder. But an employment attorney can really help also, because the employment attorney will be able to help you deal with the law, deal with the contract that you have between you and your co-founder, and will help you legally work through these issues. That would be the next step I would take. Now, the next thing that comes up typically, and I've seen this a lot, is maybe I should let the co-founder stay on as an advisor. My typical answer is this: don't. Don't do it. Now, why am I saying don't do it? Because typically there's a reason why you're letting the co-founder go, and it's because the co-founder isn't working out. Why would you want to keep him on as an advisor? It doesn't make much sense. And all they're going to do is drain time, drain resource, and guess what? Either drain more cash or more equity from your company, both of which are in high demand. So you don't want to do this. Make it a clean break. Just move on. That's what I would suggest doing in almost every case. So let's move on to the next point. What do you tell the team? Well, this may be a little controversial, but this is my typical thing that I like to do. In fact, let me take a step back, because first is the thought process. And the thought process is this: class and grace. You don't need to drag somebody, no matter how evil they were, how bad they were, through their mud on their way out the door. So handle yourself with class and grace. Your team will appreciate it. The company will appreciate it. Even the co-founder you let go will appreciate it. Handle yourself with class and grace. Think about how you would want a CEO to talk about you leaving the company. Would you want them to say disparaging things? Of course not. So let that be your guide. Now, here's what I like to do. So what I like to do is I like to say this. Person A has left the company and we wish them well. That's it. Simple, short, to the point. You don't need to say, hey, I fired somebody, and good luck to them or whatever. No, just say the person has left the company and you wish them well. That's easy enough to say. People will know you fired the person. You don't need to drag them through the mud. It doesn't help anybody. So now to my next point. Maybe this is a little bit out of order, but when do you tell your investors and board members that you're going to take action and fire a key employee or a co-founder? Well, you do it beforehand. Now, you're not soliciting advice here. You are telling the investors, you're telling your board members, I am going to fire this person. It is not, hey, can I fire somebody? You're creating a vacuum when you do that. You're the CEO. You get to make the personnel decisions, not the board, not the investors. So you tell them, I am firing this person. Here's why I am firing this person. Now, don't go overboard here. You don't need to. Simple, direct, and to the point. That's all you need to do. If you're simple, direct, and to the point, your board may ask some questions. Your investors may ask some questions. All you have to do is just answer them. Don't be defensive. Just tell them what happened, tell them why, and tell them that you're moving on from this person. They will respect you for it. They're not going to tell you no. In fact, they really can't tell you no because you get to make the personnel decisions here. I will tell you, if you solicit it for discussion and debate, you may not like what you hear back, and you're going to show weakness to your investors and to your board. You're the CEO. You get to make the decisions on personnel. Okay, my next one. What if the co-founder quits before you can fire them and they let the board know and the investor know and the investors know, and let's say they even say disparaging things about you? I've had this happen. One of my co-founders, right before I was going to fire him, guess what he did? He quit, sent an email to the board before I could do anything, and then you're kind of a little bit in defensive mode. But here's the key. Don't be defensive. Just tell them, here's what happened. I was about to fire this person or whatever the circumstances are in your particular case. You just tell them. You tell them what happened honestly, directly, and then they're going to ask you this. Well, what are you going to do? In fact, even with the previous point, when you tell your board that you're going to fire somebody or the person quits before you can fire them, they're going to ask you, this is the logical thing, well, what's your plan? Then you have to tell them, are you going to replace this person? Are you not going to replace this person? If you're going to replace this person, how are you going to find the replacement? Always have that thought process in place because the person's gone at this point in time. Tell them the plan of attack for what you're going to do next. Now for the trickiest one of all. What if you're in the process of raising money and a co-founder quits or a key employee quits? What do you do then? And of course, I've had this one happen to me too. In fact, I've had it happen to me in a couple different ways. So what do you do? Well, the first thing is, if you have existing investors, you tell your existing investors, just like in the previous points, person quit, here's what my plan is, and here's what I'm going to do. Or I'm going to fire this person, and here's what I'm going to do. Now, you may get pushback here, I will tell you from experience, from your board. Even if a person quits, they may say to you, no, that person can't quit because they're scared that the funding is going to go away. And I will tell you also in my experience, it is possible, especially if it's like a VP of engineering that quit, that can happen. But you know what? It's going to go away anyway, so you're better off just telling the investors, your future investors, what's going to happen. That's going to be my next point anyway. So I disagree with this. I think that's something that I would push back on if I was in this situation. I've actually had this happen, and I did push back. And I did say, no, I don't think that's going to work, because then you're lying and you're going to lie to future investors, and that's never good. Because how are you going to have a relationship of integrity with your investors, new and old, if you're caught lying? The answer is you can't. So you have to be honest. And if your board tells you this, you have to say, you know what, I respectfully disagree. But you want to get ahead of the story. So this gets to my next point. Tell your board, tell your investors, and then tell your future investors, this person quit, here's what happened, here's our plan. And if they go away, they go away. It's going to happen anyway, so you're better off being honest about it and telling them, because at least It will keep you from having a problem later. If you get the funding, think of it this way. Imagine you sell this lie. You keep the co-founder on board. This is the classic play everybody wants you to keep the co-founder on board. And then you say, you know what, 2 months later, I'm going to let this co-founder go, or we agree. Somehow or other, there's going to be a written agreement. You didn't divulge it. It comes out. Guess what? You're no longer the CEO. You're gone. That's the first thing. The second thing is the funding may go away. They could ask for what's called a rescission. I've never seen this happen before, but it's possible. They could say, you know what? You gave us money. We gave you money. You lied to us. You didn't tell us the truth, and therefore, we want our money back. That could possibly happen. So just don't go there. There's no point in it. Just be honest, be direct. It will pay off for you. And you know what happens? And I've seen this happen in the 2 times I've been through this. What happens is the future investors always, at least in my case, they rolled with it. They said, okay, no problem. Thanks for letting us know. We appreciate it. Keep us posted on your progress. And yeah, we're still interested in investing, in the company. And in fact, they did invest in the company. As I think through the ones that went through with it, I think there was 2 that we lost, 2 that we kept. So that's just the way it's going to be anyways. So there you go. Those are my 9 points for you on how to deal with a co-founder that you want to fire, a co-founder that quits, a key employee that quits, in the good times, the bad times, the adverse times. You've got my advice for good or bad. I'm Brett at brettjfox.com. Have a great, great day.